Yeah, good.
Wonderful.
Okay. We have in PDS been working for some years on looking into whether we could utilize our unused vessels that became idle during the period of low oil prices and so forth. The oil prices is high, but the market is still pretty bad. But we made some, I'm just going to share quickly to you and share some observations, which is obviously challenges going forward. Our main objective in the early days was to really develop an efficient method for dynamic collection, and also in doing so and testing out system, replace myths with facts through accurate and open data. I'm not going to show the concept. You can do that afterwards. I'll share this presentation with you in PDF format, and you can all go in and look at our screens or the presentation we have in there on YouTube for how we envisioned to do this in the first place. As you know, there is a quite big what should I say, initiative in Holland called the Ocean Cleanup, which has been doing some tests now recently in the Pacific. They originally had planned to do a non-active collection, and that failed, and then we've been out and collecting plastics in a similar way that we proposed some years ago. But however, we are not really proposing to filter the whole ocean side. You know, that's not what we are proposing. We are thinking that in some occasions there is a case for cleaning up by mechanical means in the oceans, and typically that would be areas with certain currents and eddies. It could be in the Pacific. I personally think that's probably maybe a little bit too big to clean up. But for example, this picture was taken in Honduras in the season 2017-2018. And this is after there has been several hurricanes in the Caribbean. And typically what happens is that because there is no good way of taking care of the waste, you will find that a hurricane can bring all the waste that's been collected on beaches and so forth back out in the ocean. And after some time, it will concentrate in certain parts of the Caribbean where the currents are leaving it in eddies, and that's when you can get situations that it almost looks like a solid cover on the oceans. And it's of course not only plastics; it's all kinds of organic litter in addition to the plastic. We planned originally for a test. We proposed to use our typically towing systems and test it out with a width of 350 to 500 meter, and have a collector bag systems, so we could quantify the data and the catch afterwards. We still believe that it is could be helpful to look into the use of air, releasing the air, and the reason we started thinking about that was that the seismic vessels normally have a huge capacity of high pressure air, which we are normally using for the seismic signals when we are acquiring seismic data. Releasing that would give an upstream, and you will also have an additional effect. We believe that the small bubbles will collect or adhere to plastic or materials and help to lift it up into the surface. The benefit of that is that you then won't need so deep skirt here for the collection. If you see where I'm drawing, this is what we call the skirt. That makes sure that whatever is floating in the surface will eventually migrate back and be into the collector unit. For really large quantities of plastic waste, we believe that you would need a processing unit in the aft here, where you would basically lift it out of the sea, sort it, and compact it at this location. But for a test, this would work out fine. It's just showing also that these methods has been tried out. This is from 3 years ago. It's a company we have been in France. We have been cooperating a little bit with in regard of ideas, and they did some testing in the harbor area in Indonesia. And clearly this works. You could employ smaller fishing boats to clean up. But as we see, both here both in Indonesia and other places, one of the key problems is afterwards in these areas. What do you do with whatever you have collected from the ocean? This needs to be sorted, and if you want to recycle the plastic, you need to clean it up and so forth. Nevertheless, if you were able to ensure that whatever you collect is not getting back into the sea, it clearly has a mission and could be a way to clean up in local areas to the benefit of the inhabitants and the citizens of those areas. In many ways, this is a flow of things you need to do whenever you are collecting. You need to have a tool out in the ocean to collect whatever is floating, and you have to work with getting this operation as efficient as possible. So it works all the time, because there is always a cost adhered to the main vessel. So not only the collection per time unit is important, but also the whole setup in such a way that you can repair if something goes wrong, that it is fast to pull in and to empty, so you keep it operating at as close to 24/7 as possible when you are out there. You need to have tools and ways to pull it back up. I'm not showing that here because of the time. You can go in and have a look at this movie from Reclaim Sea. And then you need to sort out. You don't want to carry the organic waste, because you will get quite a bit of organic waste in here as well in a lot of areas. So you need to sort that out somehow. Probably in the end some automatic, but in the beginning you would need people to do some rough sorting. And from there you need to shred and dispose of the organic waste in such a way that you're not collecting it again in the same collection system. When you have sorted the plastics, you need to shred it, and then you need to bale it and ship it off if you are not doing something else with it. So this is the whole, I would say, logistic and operational cycle of what you need to do out on the oceans to achieve your objectives. You can use assisting tools, which is becoming more interesting, because you would probably want to find out where you can find the biggest catch. And many ways, when you get up in the air, you can easier see a current, where the currents are taking the garbage and everything else, and you can follow that part with the help from these types of tools. Sonar is also another thing you can that could possibly be employed in finding bigger plastic debris. For example, fishing nets, ghost nets that is left out in the ocean and is often floating around or tied to the bottom in maybe one tool. And you probably want to run some tests at the same time you're out there anyhow for microplastic monitoring. which is another. It's not something you can clean up because it's too fine, but it's interesting to see how the levels of microplastic is evolving in the oceans. And what can we achieve by this? I think it's fair to say that the problem of ocean plastics require a multi-pronged approach, and this includes methods of efficient collection. And our aim is to develop a robust and cost-efficient method of such collection in areas of high concentration. And the international community agree that plastic represents a major threat to the ocean health. There's a need for action, but there is a gap in knowledge and gap in technology. And we wanted and still want to be part of closing these gaps. But it's many ways of doing this going forward. So, what is the main challenges for marine collection? The first one is power, because with large net system, with collection booms on the side, it requires a lot of power. You will have drags from 80 to 100 tons in the collection systems, and you will need large propulsion, which is high cost and high level of CO2 emission. So in the end, this will be a discussion and about cost benefit. No way to avoid that. And the second one then is the logistics. The litter needs to be sorted, plastics of all kinds have to be cut in order to be compacted. Then you can bale it. It's already good tools and systems for doing this. None of this needs to be invented. And then it's a question of whether you transport it to shore. For example, we did a small exercise on one of our boats, and we found out that, in 20 to 30 days, that boat would be full. So for example, if you are collecting plastics waste out in the Pacific, you will probably want to have some sort of a supply vessel running supplies with fuel and food out, and then crew, and then bringing the plastic back on shore. But alternatively, you could consider transforming the litter to fuel or heat for energy recovery. People don't like to discuss this these days, that everything is about recycling, but it's a fact that most nations have a lot of plastic waste sitting in storage areas around the countries, which is already clean, but it's not really used for recycling. So the question is whether it is prudent to spend extra energy on cleaning up and transporting this, if you could reuse the energy in a different way at the same time as you're cleaning up. I think this is a very fundamental question, because as I said, most people don't like to hear that we are burning it or doing it else, but it is probably the most efficient way of getting rid of dangerous or plastic waste in the oceans, rather than trying to recover it and recycle it. And then comes the last bit, which the ocean cleanup has managed to very well so far. They got quite a bit of money to test out the systems in the Pacific. The cost of operating each vessel will be around 30 to 40,000 US dollars per day. And to make any impact in what I say we call medium level pollution areas, like the Great Pacific, then there will be a high number of vessels. It will be a very high cost for this type of operation, and then it comes down who will be paying. It is probably other areas in the world that you will have more cleaning effect with less money. And for you that's working on plastic litter problems, it's clearly that an alternative to go for looking at rivers and other means where you are not spending any additional energy for collection. And that's clearly a food for thought. So that's it from my side. I'll send this presentation to Carl or Tara in PDF. And there is a link there that you can look at.
That'll be great. If you send it through to either Carl or myself, we can send those out to the participants who are interested. Thank you so much for the presentation. I haven't seen any questions come through in the chat yet, but if anyone wants to post any through or raise their hands. In the meantime, I just had one or two questions. I know you mentioned the costs in terms of the carbon emitted and the financial cost of running the vessels. Have you found that it's economically viable to sort of collect plastic waste from the ocean for recycling
No.
using those methods? Okay.
No, I don't, and I think anybody else will find it. But I think this is more a political or a moral question in the end. How much do you spend on cleaning up, and where do you put your efforts? Unfortunately, as I said, if you look at how some of the areas in the Caribbean has been affected occasionally, I think it's and this is quite poor nations. You could argue that it would be prudent to clean up because it's not necessarily their garbage, and they are. It could be an argument that the world society should help to do something like this. As you are normally paying money to get your garbage cleaned up where you are living. Nobody is really wondering about that. So I think you have to look upon it at the same way that it would be something that there has to be found international means in cleaning up.
So almost a sort of an international financing in terms of extended producer responsibility or something to that extent.
Yeah, otherwise you will depend on charity and so forth. As I said, the ocean cleanup has done a fantastic job in collecting money, but in the end there will be a measure of cost benefit there also from the people giving, and I don't think you will be able to run very large operations for a long time based on charity.
Okay, thank you. I think also the idea behind that might be in that in order for it to be sustainable, it does need to be economically viable, but also given the global awareness of the Great Pacific garbage patches and all the gyres that have led to the large collections of waste in the ocean, we would hope that that those won't accumulate at the same rates that they have over the last few years. So hopefully, if it is collected, it doesn't need to be an ongoing activity. I did just have one other question. Have any studies been done on the impacts of this sort of method of collection? I know the ocean cleanup has.
We have had that, and we have found that it's very little you can risk in getting, during spawning season in some areas and fry it. But and you can see that from all experience that if you are not towing very fast in such a system like this, the fish will go out again. This is well known from fishing research in with trawl systems and so on as well. So if your collection system, the currency is not that great, you will not collect any fish in this. You could be having unhap of getting a turtle in or something like that, but you need monitoring system in that will ensure that you will go and pick it out if you are getting something like if you're getting animals into the collection system. But luckily enough, is in the surface you can have additional buoy systems and clean up easily. So I don't think you will have much negative impacts as long as you and the areas where you have spawning and so forth. It's I think it will be very little negative impacts on it altogether. The fry will pass over and pass through the system.
Okay, and I suppose that would obviously then be considered in the equipment that gets used and the locations where the operations take place.
Yeah. Then you're not going into Lofoten area in the middle of the fishery, for example.
Sure.
but that's not where you would be. It wouldn't be worthwhile doing this anyhow. So from a fishing point of view, I see very little problem. You have to have the right measures to cope with turtles and other animals that might be caught. But we haven't seen any much. In the seismic industry, we have occasionally seen that we have had turtles hang up on our tail buoys, but we have worked through that and we found that out, and I don't we have killed anybody over all these years we have been working. So the damage I think will be minimal.
Okay. Thank you. It's a very interesting adaptation from sort of seismic research to and exploration to marine cleanups. So it's very interesting to hear your findings there.
It's very close to what we are doing as a daily living, with towing equipment 24/7. So we are pretty sure it would work out. The difficulty is to find ways to finance to get this done. Nevertheless, we are also taking part in some other project in Norway and the groups there. I think for this group, looking at various ways of river collections and so on is very good. And there is one very good, relatively cheap example sitting here in Akerselva in Oslo. It's a nice place to go and have a look if somebody's in Oslo, but you can really do something there at a very low cost if people work together. Again, the question will be what are you able to take care of what you are getting into the systems? How are you disposing of it and so forth? That's the big challenge for all these initiatives, I think.
Thank you. Carl, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just latching on to what Janine was talking about, inspired by the Motherwell type of project. So just thinking out loud, if Einar can find funding to bring ashore at a dock near you in South Africa a number of bales of compacted plastic litter, roughly 1 meter square or cubic each. What is a conceivable value of 1 cubic meter of plastic waste on a dock in South Africa? Is it conceivable that it might have a positive value, or do we have to expect it to have a negative value? Back to, again, the Motherwell type experiences that you guys at SSD and others on this call might have. So in Norway, the answer is it wouldn't have positive value because just the transport of putting it into incineration, if they could even incinerate it, I mean, in Norway, it would have a negative value and it would incur a cost. I guess my question is it conceivable it could have a positive value elsewhere in the world?
I think that's quite a tricky question with a lot of different parts. I'm not sure if Janine is still with us. I imagine she might weigh in, but off the top of my head, I would think that it would definitely depend on the sort of economies of scale, and the waste value chain in South Africa is quite unique in that there are a lot of informal sectors that are incorporated into the value chain, which do add sort of costs to the final recycled product. But I would think that it would also depend where it's landed, the recyclable material, and that I believe in Cape Town is the bottle-to-bottle plant that has that focuses on. Sorry, Janine, shaking your head, not Cape Town.
Joburg.
Joburg. Okay, so there would obviously be those transport costs involved as well. Janine, I'm not sure if you want to expand on Carl's thought.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. I think it comes down to obviously what kind of plastics are in that bale. You know, harkening back to a previous presentation as well, in terms of the value of plastic, PET bottles specifically are the highest value, along with HDPE bottles. And then the lower value ones are around LDPE, PP. Well, PP is fairly valuable as well, but LDPE and then PVC. So it would depend on what that bale of plastics is made from. The assumption would be that it would be fairly clean at least, but already baled like that, it would need to be clean in terms of the type of plastic that's within the bale to then be able to answer that question. If it's mixed plastics, no recycler will take it, because the cost of separating it out and making sure that they don't contaminate their recycling process is too high in terms of labor costs. So it's unlikely that if it's a mixed plastics bale, it would, other than the transport costs, that it would even be considered by a recycler. And so it would probably end up in landfill in South Africa anyway.
So even in South Africa, the labor cost of sorting it would be prohibitive.
Yeah. I mean, that's the number one cost, other than transport, it's the labor cost of sorting it, which the informal sector does. But they do it because they know that when it's sorted, they get a higher value for it. So the recyclers don't do it, and that's why the recyclers will, the large-scale mechanical recyclers at least, they will only accept clean, baled, sorted plastics, and even sorted down to color. It's not even just sorted according to plastic type, it's sorted to color.
And if the bales were sorted, would that make a difference for recyclers in South Africa? Sorted by plastic and possibly color?
Yeah, so they'll take it. It's just about how to get it there and who covers that cost. Yeah, so the economics, my words, economics of recycling is a really important, I think, consideration when we think about the value chain of plastics. Innately, plastics do not have a value, and it's required that the industry inserts a value through extended producer responsibility for a post-consumer packaging product. And that's what EPR actually does, is it gives value to the product in a post-consumer phase, because the costs get passed down, and then the consumer, beyond the consumer, there's a value to that product, it will be collected, and the collector, the informal collector, knows that when they take it to the reprocessing plant or the buyback center, they will get something for it. So those kind of things need to be considered. And then, of course, as you mentioned, the cost of transport, which is the biggest cost when it comes to the economics of recycling, needs to be covered by someone. And who's going to cover that cost is the question.
Okay. Thank you, Janine. Just while we're on this on this track, if there were recycling centers set up near ports with that kind of informal sector there to support and sort of sort through things, would that be viable in sort of, obviously under ideal conditions, but would that be viable in any sense?
My question would be, we send out these vessels to collect the marine waste and we bring it back. That cost is going to have to be absorbed by someone. If the plastics waste is given to the informal sector for free, and they can separate it on and they can then sell it on, then yes, I think that there could be some sort of system that's set up for that. But the cost of taking that marine plastic out of the ocean is still going to have to be covered by someone. And so, the best solution is really to stop it from getting into the oceans in the first place.
Of course, and hopefully with the sort of public awareness of the sort of the garbage patches in the ocean and things like that, hopefully the sort of prevention will be a bit more viable going forward, and it would just be a case of extracting the pollution that's already exists in the environment instead of having more of it enter it. Thank you, Janine and Einar. I don't see any other questions in the chat or anything. Carl, do you want to bring anything else up?
No, I mean, to me, this is a fascinating. I mean, Einar has been working on these concepts for a number of years, and I mean, this is one of the cases where everybody literally appreciates the effort. Everybody understands the need to do something. Everybody wants something to get done. I mean, this is sort of everybody is cheering, but nobody is picking up the tab. So it's an interesting aspect of a global issue that everybody recognizes, and yet finding in a big scheme of things, limited amounts of money compared to what society at large spends money on. This remains sort of unsolved, which is a conundrum and a sad one at that.
As one last comment from me before leaving you guys, I think that in general, after listening to a lot of speeches and so forth and presentation already, I think we have over focused on the idea of recycling, because I think for the oceans and so on, the importance is to clean up, and even though it's not optimal, reusing of the energy is probably a good enough thing. It's good enough, and I think it would be easier if more people were honest enough to talk about that, because you don't want it back out in the ocean for any reasons. If you have good burning methods where you recover the energy for whatever reason you need to recover energy, that should be good enough. With all the plastic waste that's sitting in storage in the world at the moment, also buried in the ground, it doesn't really make sense to start cleaning, spending additional power and energy to clean the plastic from the oceans, just because you want to sell garments which is labeled recycled from the oceans or whatever. It's of course nice, but when you think about it, it doesn't really make sense.
Thanks. I think that, for example, the burning the waste for electricity and that sort of thing, I think there would be a number of concerns for that in South Africa, and how it would be managed, and if investments in energy sector would be warranted in that particular sector. And I think there would also be the cost to the circular economy for that. But I do understand that to fish all the plastic out of the ocean to just have it sit in landfill would not be a great solution. Janine, I see you have your hand up.
Thanks, Tara. Yeah, I think the waste to energy conversation is quite an important one to have when we're thinking about solutions to plastic pollution. In some instances, it doesn't really make sense. In other instances, it could possibly be considered. With PET bottles as an example, waste to energy is not a conducive solution to the issue of plastic bottles in the environment. And their recycling, and for a lot of other plastics, actually, mechanical recycling is very much a part of what I would consider the circular economy. And I know that internationally, that is not necessarily accepted as part of the circular economy. But we in South Africa and in Africa, we need to consider our own solutions for what's happening here, taking international best practice into consideration, of course. But when we have such a large component of the recycling economy that comes from the informal sector, I mean, 85% of PET bottles that are recycled in South Africa come from the informal sector, and that is a pattern that's probably going to be replicated in the rest of Africa. Then we need to consider what the implications for the informal sector are for mechanical recycling, and they get so much benefit, not only from income opportunities, but also just from a sense of value and a sense of feeling valuable in the recycling economy. I think we can't really erase the importance of mechanical recycling in the concept of moving towards transitioning to a circular economy. I mean, we're not anywhere near where we need to be, but as we transition, mechanical recycling is very much an important component of what we consider a circular economy.
Yeah, I understand that. It has to be, but it has to be a measure on where it, and then horses for courses, and use it when it's appropriate, and not be stuck into any part. And there is good initiatives, in Norway, it's to companies trying to recover this and make new type of material for plastic production through processes. So it remains to see whether they're becoming viable, but maybe in a few years you are able to do that, and then you are not as dependent on the cleanliness and the sorting of the materials either.
Mm. Well, actually, the technology that's used for mechanical recycling in South Africa, I mean, Chandra will speak on it tomorrow as part of his presentation. It can handle very contaminated plastics from landfill, because 70% of the plastics that come from or come into the recycling plants are from landfill and therefore very contaminated. So the technology obviously has to be able to deal with that as well, which it can.
Interesting.
Mm.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, great to hear about how you've adapted from sort of seismic research into ocean cleanups. So thank you so much for joining us and presenting today. And thank you, Janine, for the discussion.